This is an area that's got tremendous possibility for growth over time.
Investors looking for growth right now can find it in these 3 long-term buys.
10%, 15%, 20% stock price growth year after year.
From strong and steady to momentum stories with sustainable growth ahead.
Analysts have been raising their price targets on the stock based on that drug and what that's going to mean for revenue.
MarketBeat's Chris Markoch shares 3 growth stocks to hold long term. Let's dive in. Chris, so great to have you back on the show. We're excited to talk about growth stocks. It's a topic that a lot of our viewers love to see. But these are growth stocks to buy and hold forever, hold for the long term. Let's talk about that theory a little bit. A lot of investors right now, there's all kinds of growth opportunities in AI, and everyone's looking for those really big growth stocks. How do you know if a growth stock is one you want to hold on to for a while versus taking some short-term profits?
Right. I mean, right now, the market, by a lot of standards, stocks look very overvalued if you look at their price to earnings ratios. And that's got a lot of investors kind of skittish and thinking, okay, maybe I need to take some profits off the table. Maybe I need to be selling my stocks. And those are questions that certainly you probably need to think about if you're going to need that money in the next 12 to 18 months. But if you're a longer term investor, if you've got a time horizon of a few years down the road or 5 years or even 10 years or longer, those aren't questions you really have to be wondering about right now. And the stocks that I'm looking at in the article that I wrote were just stocks that they're good stocks to just buy and hold, and you can sleep well at night, and you can just kind of avoid a lot of the noise in the market.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of noise right now. It's nice to know if you can get in on a stock that's good and hold it for a long time, you don't have to worry about it for a long time. So that is what these 3 stocks are today.
Yeah.
Chris, let's get to that first company that's a good growth stock to buy now and hold long term.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Rocket Lab. Now, some investors might get a little nervous when I say a company like Rocket Lab because this, by some metrics, would be considered still a speculative stock. The company is, they're generating revenue, but the revenue is being measured in the hundreds of millions, not the hundreds of billions, and it's not a profitable company yet. That would be a company that a lot of people would say, that's not a long-term hold. That's a speculative stock. It's a meme stock. I disagree for Rocket Lab, and here's why. First of all, the company is in the emerging space sector market. Now, we've done a lot of videos on the channel about space stocks, and Rocket Lab is one of the leaders in that category. They are more than a launch company, but there's no doubt that right now the bulk of their revenue is coming from their launch business, not only their Electron rockets now, but their neutron rockets, which are coming in the future. And there's nothing wrong with that. The company also has a full range of services that they provide, as their goal is to be an end-to-end space company. But let's face it, Apple is well known now for their services, but for a long time, the iPhone was the only story in town. And for a lot of investors, for Apple, the iPhone is still the story. So there's nothing wrong with saying Rocket Lab makes the majority of its revenue right now in the launches, but it's got bigger objectives in the space sector.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential growth ahead for this sector. I think it's important to talk about, too, the demand for the number of launches and satellites and things out there, too. Have we seen that demand growth happening a lot, too?
Oh, yes. They're on pace now where they're launching pretty much like a rocket a week, or at least they have the capability to do so. And that's with their Electron program. And then they've got their neutron program is getting ready to kick in, and that's going to be able to provide them to deliver larger payloads into space. So yeah, the demand is certainly there on that side of the business. And they're also growing the other side of the business. And like I said, just because the one is more revenue than the other, that's not something that a long-term investor should be worried about.
Now, one more question on this one for the long term is that, do we see the demand and this whole sector, the space sector, just getting bigger over time? I think that's when you have a more speculative growth play. That's when it makes sense to be a long-term hold, is when we see this sector just starting to get more interest now. But do we see this sector really, really seeing that explosive long-term sustainable growth?
You look at what the analysts are forecasting, and I'm not just talking about the Rocket Lab stock analysts. I'm talking about sector analysts who are really engaged in the space industry. this is an area that's got tremendous possibility for growth over time. It's critical for defense. It's critical for a lot of other industries right now. The race is on not only with the United States, but with other nations as far as space goes. So right now, again, if you're looking at Rocket Lab, unprofitable now, probably not unprofitable for very long, and it's in the right sector if you're looking at buying into one of these speculative stocks and treating it as a buy and hold.
All right, great first pick, a little bit more controversial than the next
Sure.
two we're going to talk about, which are more traditional
Yeah.
buy and hold picks. If you are looking for other really traditional buy and hold long term stocks, make sure to check out our free premium report on 7 stocks to buy and hold forever. These are all strong and steady stocks versus those higher growth stocks that we're going to be covering in this video today. But this free premium report is a really strong list for reliable returns over time. You can scan the QR code now or click the link in the description to get that full list right now on MarketBeat.com. Okay, Chris, let's get to that second stock on your list of a growth stock that's good to hold long term.
Right. And so the pick I'm having right now is AbbVie. Ticker symbol is ABBV for those that wouldn't know. So AbbVie is one of those blue chip stocks that people would look at and say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense as a buy and hold." It's a dividend king. It's increased their dividend, I believe, for 53 consecutive years. So no worries about the dividend right now. The company is best known for their drugs, for their signature drugs, flagship drugs, I should say, Humira, and now Rinvoq and Skyrizi. But what's got me interested in the stock right now, not only as a value stock for investors, but also as a growth stock, they just released, they recently, I should say, received FDA approval for an ovarian cancer drug called Emrellis. And so analysts have been raising their price targets on the stock based on that drug and what that's going to mean for revenue. They're also getting ready to launch that drug in the UK. So they've got both they both got the United States and the United Kingdom covered. And again, this is just a very solid stock for the dividend anyway. But now you're seeing Skyrizi and Rinvoq are helping to make up for any possible revenue that they were losing now that Humira lost its patent protection, and now they're having other drugs, and they've got a deep pipeline of other drugs coming.
I'm glad you talked about why this is falling into the category of a growth stock. I think growth investors are looking for exceptional growth, right? Those really high momentum kinds of companies out there. This is a company that's been around forever.
Right.
If it's been around long enough to be a dividend king, do we often see that switch where a company can be very solid, be a dividend king, has been around forever, and being able to switch into a growth category simply because of maybe a pivot, a new catalyst within the company, and how much of a growth story are we talking about?
That's going to depend on what sector you're in. And in the case of AbbVie, you're talking about a biopharmaceutical company. A lot of times when people think about biopharma companies, they're thinking of penny stocks. And we've done videos on penny stocks. But in this case, you're talking about a company that if you're not holding the stock in the long term, then you're trying to time when you get in. And that's when it gets risky. With AbbVie, the benefit is you just hold the stock, and then now you're getting that benefit when they get these times of extreme growth, like they did when they first launched Humira, when they did last year when Skyrizi and Rinvoq really kicked in, and now you're seeing it with this new cancer drug. So that's why AbbVie is one of those stocks that they're not going to disappoint you as a value stock, and you're always going to be getting that dividend and you're going to be getting a little bit of growth. But if you just buy and hold the stock, then you also benefit from those times when you get those pops.
All right, a couple more follow-up questions on this one. The question is, how much growth are we talking about? What are analysts saying that how far this company could go in the next year? And then also wondering about the risk of holding specifically a biotech pharmaceutical company long-term. Is there more of a risk with these kinds of companies in as a long-term hold? So 2 questions there.
Right now, AbbVie's trading a little bit above their consensus price target. So that would be something that for investors who aren't currently in the stock, they might get a little bit concerned about, is now the time to buy the stock? Because it's, but what I was just saying about they launched the ovarian cancer drug, and there's been at least 2 analysts of UBS Group and Bank of America, each have put a price target of 251 on AbbVie. So that's about a 10% gain from where it's at right now. That might not excite investors too much. But again, remember, this is a company that they pay a reliable dividend. And I just said analysts are projecting about 10% growth in the stock price, but the company's projected to have earnings growth of over 13.5%. That tells me that analysts might not yet be catching up to what's going to be happening here with AbbVie. So there could be some more growth coming in. Then your second question, the risks. Um, I think the risks in the biotech sector specifically, those exist more with your smaller speculative biotechs that maybe aren't generating any revenue right now and are not profitable, because the risk of failure there if one of their drugs does not get across the finish line is much greater than it is with a company like AbbVie, because AbbVie, they tend to, when they've got drugs in clinical trials, the drugs don't tend to fail, first of all. But secondly, they've got much more of a buffer there if they do.
All right. Interesting conversation on this second pick. Let's move on to the third company on your list of growth stock to hold long term.
Yeah, so this is one that been in the news recently because they just did earnings in late September. That's Costco. Now, Costco was trading over about $1,000 a share earlier this summer, I think it was. And it's come down a little bit since. It's in the 900 somewhere, but some people might say that doesn't qualify it as a growth stock. But I disagree. Costco's been one of those stocks that if you've held it and just bought the stock and held it for the long term, you've been rewarded with a strong total return over any time period you look at, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. This is just a juggernaut. And why? Well, it's that membership model that Costco has. People have to be members. They have to pay a membership fee to be part of Costco. That goes directly to Costco's bottom line. Costco raised that membership fee just in, I think it was earlier this year. And so far, they've seen no meaningful dip in their retention rates, which is over 90%, or approximately 90% in the US. So this is a company that they're just clicking on all cylinders. They're a defensive stock at times when maybe inflation's a little high, but they're also a company that, again, if you're paying that membership fee, you're just going to shop there no matter what, because again, you're paying that fee to shop there.
Yeah, and you're not paying attention to what that fee is. I wouldn't have even known the rates went up because I go all the time.
Exactly.
Let's talk about for investors now. One thing we hear from retail investors when you look at a stock like Costco is this is too expensive for a retail investor to even buy one share. Let's talk about fractional shares a little bit. Is there
Right.
still just as much benefit to investors if they do want to get into Costco, but they don't want to give so much of an upfront investment?
Certainly, yes. I would advocate, um, again, if your intention is to hold the stock for the long term and you're not trying to trade in and out of it, buying fractional shares is a wonderful way to go. And that's a really great thing that we've had with companies like Robinhood and Webull, and now even some of the other major traders are allowing fractional shares to be bought on their website. It's great for the retail investor. It gives you an opportunity to buy into stocks like Costco, and you don't have to buy a whole share. You can just buy a little bit and keep buying a little bit over time, and you'll get there. You'll get to where you want to go. It might take a little longer, but with a company like Costco, you're not really worried about missing out on something because it's just been a steady performer over time. Now, an interesting point about Costco, um, I've made this point before. I know Thomas Hughes has made this point before. Costco split its stock about, I think it's 7 times in its history. And when it got close to $1,000 this year, a lot of people were thinking, okay, hey, Costco might be splitting again. Now, Costco has said they're not planning on doing that, but you still have to ask the question. They've split it in the past. That stock's knocking on that $1,000 mark, and a company like Walmart already split their stock. And one of the stated reasons that Walmart did it was they wanted to make the stock more accessible to their own employees. Is it unthinkable that Costco might do the same thing? No. So again, I think even if you are just buying fractional shares now, that's something to think about, is this company may be looking to split their stock again at some point in the future.
Yeah, it's a good point for Costco to consider. I think one thing to talk about as we wrap up this video is just talking about what constitutes a growth stock, because we have plenty of viewers out there who say, if I don't get at least 30% gains or more,
Right.
I'm not even looking at it. I mean, some people are such big growth
Right.
investors, they're really looking for triple digit growth, and that's the only kinds of stocks that they're looking for. For you or for different investors, let's just talk about
Mhm.
what qualifies as a growth stock.
When I'm thinking about a growth stock, I'm looking at the old saying is when in doubt, zoom out. I'm looking at the chart over a long period of time because again, if you're looking to buy the stock and hold it for the long term, you're not caring so much about the volatility. The stock may go up 60%, it may go down 30%. But a lot of these stocks, especially stocks like Costco and AbbVie, you're not going to see that 60% price movement in 1 year. But if you see steady, and I'm talking steady, 10%, 15%, 20% stock price growth year after year, and you combine that with a dividend that's paying you 2%, 3%, that's a great total return over time. And okay, maybe it's not the 30% growth rate that you might get with another stock, but who cares? Over time, you're going to be just fine.
All right, it's a different way to look at stocks right now and to look at
Sure.
growth for your investments. Let us know what you think in the comments. Are you looking for those explosive growth, high growth stories? What does growth look like to you? What kind of percentage are you looking to gain? I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments and what you think about these three stocks as long-term holds too. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, everyone. As always, happy investing.